I discovered this concept of a capsule wardrobe, which is basically having 40 to 50 pieces only in your wardrobe, which are all classic pieces, things that you can mix and match, and you can just make outfits out of those 40 to 50 pieces.
How
where
big
you
is
don't
this
need
capsule? Because 40 to 50 is a big number.
So I think one thing that lacks in the modeling industry is professionalism.
Hello and welcome, guys. Welcome to another podcast. Today we have Miss Raseeka, who is a model and recently turned entrepreneur, you can say. So hi Raseeka, thank you
Hi,
so much
Muddassir.
for
Nice to meet
being
you.
on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Please tell us more about who Raseeka is.
Sure. So I actually started modeling about 5 years ago. That's where my, modeling journey began, right when I was in college. And I'm still doing it. It's still going on. But simultaneously, I've also started a business, which is a clothing brand called Minimal Mess. And it's to do with streetwear classics. So it deals with classic fashion, which is basically all the classic pieces that don't depend on trends. They're trans-seasonal and they're always relevant. So that's what the brand is about in short. And so these are the two things that I'm doing currently.
Okay, so we'll speak about the brand a little later. Let's get to know you more as the model.
Yeah.
Okay, so what made you move towards modeling? What was your thought process behind picking that?
So it actually happened quite in the flow. I actually never decided to, get into modeling. It was something never even in my mind, never something I considered. So I was in college and we used to have photography as a subject. And a lot of my seniors, they used to take me for, the photo shoots, like the projects that we used to have in college. And I just used to model for them. And they used to do like the clothing and the makeup and everything. And it was just for fun. I used to get like pictures out of it. And it was just like this fun thing that, I used to do. And then I started uploading these pictures on my Instagram. And I did maybe like 4 or 5 shoots in college, kept uploading those. And slowly, like a few photographers started approaching me on, in my DMs saying that, hey, like we want to do like a collaboration with you. Just so they used to have like a concept and we used to, they used to source the clothes and everything. And we used to like do these shoots. And I started liking the process. So I was like, okay, I'll do like a couple of shoots and everything. And again, that's how my profile started building up. So I never intended on getting into it, but it's something that I just sort of fell into. And slowly then I got my first brand that approached me for like a proper,
That was after how many years of modeling?
That was, I think, about like 7-8 months after I started like uploading and everything. So then the brand approached me and it was like something I never expected, but I was like really happy about it that, I get to work with, an actual brand, though it was like a startup brand and everything, but still it was a pretty big deal for me. And then I went for that and that's how basically it all began. And then slowly my profile built up to quite a good level and a good extent. And then I started getting like really good brands, some of the very well-known brands in Hyderabad. I got to work with them. So it's been like 5 years now and it's been a great journey. So yeah.
So you kind of got lucky initially, safe to say that. So now post when you got lucky, like you told, your brand scaled, like you yourself became a brand and you scaled yourself. Now, how much of that maturity came with every project that came and how did you brush up your skills? Because a lot of people think that modeling is just putting on clothes, doing makeup and posing in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Wherein a lot of people don't realize there's much more happening beyond that. So how did you scale yourself in that aspect?
So firstly, it was about becoming really good at what I'm doing to make sure that I'm giving my best and I'm doing the job like really well. So it was about knowing my angles. It was about, okay, what works for me and what doesn't, and about how I can give the best outcome to the client and whoever I'm working with. So over time, I understood, like with every shoot, you kind of understand, okay, what's working, what you can do, what is not really working. So that's how I sort of understood that. And obviously with every shoot, I also got more confidence in front of the camera.
What advice would you give to people who want to model but at the same time they don't have a backup? Like for example, you started modeling when you were in college. So you basically didn't need a backup because you were still very much reliant on your parents, right? So your fallback was family. Now let's just say there's a 20-something-year-old kid, a guy or a girl, doesn't matter, just done with college, but they feel like their natural calling is modeling. They want to try that and they don't have anything to fall back on. So what is the risk to benefit ratio in that?
Okay, so firstly, I think if someone wants to get into this field, the first thing is building your portfolio. And once you do that, and I think approaching a lot of good photographers to work with and sort of building your name that way. And when you work with, fairly renowned photographers, that's how your name sort of gets out there. More people are noticing you, and eventually you might land, some good projects. But also another, now if you really want to make a career out of it, then joining an agency is like the best option. So you approach an agency, or a lot of times agencies come and approach you itself when they see or spot your profile and they see that, okay, like this person has a good face, good angles. So they approach you and then they take you into their agency. So an agency is like a very good option to, start a career, get into modeling. And also Hyderabad still has a pretty small industry. It's not that big yet. So going to places like Bombay or Delhi is like the best option, because that's where the industry is pretty big. You have a lot of agencies there, and that's where these bigger brands, that's where they're selecting models from. So professionally, it's a great place to start if you go to Bombay or Delhi.
So now let's finally talk about Minimal Mess.
Yes.
First, why that name?
So Minimal Mess says it's talks about two things actually. So the first thing being that, like I mentioned, it's all about classic fashion, classic pieces that are always relevant. So Minimal Mess is basically saying that it's to a consumer, it's less confusion and it's very on point. It's very straightforward. There's no confusion and it's very like understandable. It's very easy to work with, very versatile. So it's very straightforward. So there's minimal mess in that sense. And also the fact that we always wanted to take the sustainable route and do things, responsibly and all of that. So minimal mess also means less impact on the environment, minimal mess like in the environment. So those are two things that it means.
So that's wordplay and what the brand speaks for.
Yeah.
Nice. So you said you're 2 years into the brand and it's still working on as a bootstrap. So for the viewers who don't know what bootstrapping is, can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So bootstrap basically means funding it yourself. You're probably using your savings to fund your business, or you are also working at the same time. A lot of people do this where they're also doing a job at the same time and funding their business that way. So it means funding the business entirely on your own without any outside investment or things like that.
So that means personal risk.
Yeah.
Trying to cut costs in terms of monthly overheads.
Yeah.
Which is why you are using your own personal space as a warehouse.
Yeah.
Right. So how much has that benefited you and what have you learned along the journey? Because the day you turn a businessman or an entrepreneur, a lot of things change for you. So what are those few things that you've learned in these 2 years with respect to minimal mess?
So I would say I've learned quite a lot actually. And also since it's like a bootstrap venture, you're putting your own money. You start valuing everything a lot, and also you're always like, okay, you think twice before doing something and you're like, okay, I don't want to waste. Is this going to be beneficial? Is it going to go to waste? But you can't honestly control that, because I feel like a lot of times you may, end up doing mistakes. You may lose some money. And that's also happened a lot, but I've also learned a lot from it. So I think anyone who's going in this direction, wanting to start a business with their own money, should be aware that you may try your best to, control these things. You may think that, okay, calculate everything, but end of the day, you can't really control some things. You may end up wasting money. You may end up wasting some time doing certain things, but you will definitely learn a lot of it.
So there's no loss when you become a businessman. It's either profit or learnings.
Yeah.
Right. So like how you advised on if someone wants to become a model, likewise, someone who wants to start a brand, like for example, for you to start a brand, bootstrap, not the best way to go, because if you take a hit, it's a personal hit. A lot of things come along with that. But given the fact that you had your own personal brand and some positioning of your own, that kind of must have elevated you in some form to at least get your brand known to a certain extent, right? Now let's just say there's a person who wants to start a streetwear brand. they have the funds, let us assume it's not Bootstrap, they have their own funds or whatever. What route would you suggest them to go apart from approaching models? What other options can they look at to wisely invest?
So, of course, most of the money, I would say, would have to firstly go towards perfecting your product. Your product has to be on point. And second would be putting a lot of money into the marketing of the product. And marketing, I mean, as of now, you have so many ways to do it. But depending on your brand and the kind of message you want to put forward, of course, influencer marketing is a great way to put your brand out there. And again, selecting the right kind of influencers is super important, because you can't just have some random influencer who doesn't even fall into your niche to get them to promote it and things like that. So you need to be careful with who you're promoting it through. And yeah, I would say, but majority of your funds should be going towards perfecting your product and marketing it through the right channels.
But also, do you not feel that once, for example, your brand is, the more niche you get with your product, that much more crowd filter is happening? Like, for example, with Minimal Mess, someone who does not even wear Western clothes, they are completely cut out, right? So how much difficult does it get for you to actually reach your target audience and conversion? How challenging does it get?
Okay. So it's challenging mainly because there are so many other competitors. So it's not so much because the crowd is less. We do have quite a lot of an audience for, the brand, but it's because we have to constantly think of how to, beat the competition. How can we keep putting ourselves forward? How can we get the audience to remember the brand and, come to it again and again? So I think that's more of a challenge rather than finding the audience. The audience is there for sure, but it's about how much you are doing, you're constantly doing. And again, putting out content again is a task, because you have to keep doing it constantly, because there's so much going out every day on, all these platforms.
Every second you don't post is every second you lose business.
Yeah, that's correct. So I would say that's more of a challenge than, the audience.
What was your thought behind even starting a streetwear brand, wherein you could have used your personal branding and started any kind of clothing for that matter, right? And still kept it climate conscious.
Yeah.
Right? But why this kind of clothing, to be precise?
So a little backstory actually. So a while back, this was like during the lockdown, you can say, I discovered this concept of a capsule wardrobe, which is basically having 40 to 50 pieces only in your wardrobe, which are all classic pieces, things that you can mix and match, and you can just make outfits out of those 40 to 50 pieces.
How big is this capsule? Because 40 to 50 is a big number.
Yeah, but that includes your tops, your bottoms, your jackets, your footwear. So it includes everything.
You know how guys function, right? Jeans in 3 colors and everything else to match with that.
Yeah. So I think guys kind of already function on a capsule wardrobe. But yeah, so this concept, I discovered it and I thought it was an amazing way to sort of, a great lifestyle to have. And from sustainability point of view, I felt like it was, if someone's willing to, wanting to get into like a sustainable lifestyle, I felt like it was a great way to go about it, because you are not over consuming, you're not constantly hoarding, clothing, not constantly shopping. You're working with these certain number of pieces. And also it's important that they are good quality pieces, because your aim is to use it for a long period of time. So I felt like, okay, this is an amazing thing, an amazing concept. And I actually started creating content based on this concept. So even now, if you go look up on my Instagram, you'll find those posts where I was doing this series of like taking one item, one classic piece, styling it in like 4 different ways according to 4 different personalities. And so I was really into that concept and sort of just making people aware of it and just talking about it. And then, so that's the backstory of why I started Minimal Mess, is because that's what Minimal Mess is all about. It's about all these classic pieces, and at the end of it, and I think when we release more pieces, people will see that these are all the pieces that you can put in a capsule wardrobe. So if someone's like, okay, I just want to shift to like classic pieces, then you can come to Minimal Mess and you'll pretty much find everything you need. So that's the aim of the brand. If I put it in a nutshell, that's what we're aiming to do. And of course, right now we have not put out too many pieces also. It's, coming out one by one. But yeah, eventually that's what it's going to be.
So do you also plan on making it exclusive? With regards to, a lot of brands are doing this, homegrown brands. can be from India, outside, anything. They are trying to do something like what you're doing. Just to make it more exclusive, what they do is they have a drop now, and that's it. That product is not going to be relaunched or restocked again.
Yeah.
So do you plan on doing something like that just to create some brand exclusivity?
I don't think so, because like I said, these are things that people can wear throughout, even 5 years down the lane. It's still going to be relevant. It's still going to want to wear it. So the style will definitely be there. Maybe certain colors will come and go. Maybe certain colors will be limited edition. But yeah, I don't think something is going to go away completely. Maybe just with the styles and colors, yes.
Okay. And also, we were doing a little bit of research before you came. On the Minimal Mess page, we've seen a Tollywood star, Regina, wear
Yeah, Regina.
Minimal Mess.
Yeah.
So tell us something about that.
Yeah, so certain stylists keep approaching the brand, and they want to, source for the celebrities that they work with. And so Regina was, one of those cases where her stylist had approached us for one of her airport looks, and which was amazing. Like, not just that one time, but actually there have been like 4 or 5 instances where, a big celebrity's stylist has approached.
Can you name some of them?
So recently, Niharika Konedala also, her stylist had also approached us because she's currently promoting her series, her new series. So they needed it for an outfit for that. And so it's great, I think, the fact that these stylists are looking for new brands and collaborating with new brands. It's amazing, and it gives us great exposure. So yeah, that was a good one.
Now you're speaking like an entrepreneur. Tell me, as a person, how does it feel to see something that you have, cultivated right from scratch, and you see that on a very well-known public figure? How does that make you feel personally?
It's extremely rewarding, and it's gives you a lot of satisfaction, because it's like, okay, I put in the work, and okay, I've got like a good outcome out of it. So I would say it feels rewarding is what I would say. That's the feeling.
So do you like just let that sink in, or you just take a pen and paper and start sketching your next piece that you want to come out with?
Yeah, I definitely let it sink in. And when it comes to the pieces, so like that's pretty much, planned out anyway. But yeah, I think it definitely motivates me to like keep putting out content. It's definitely very motivating. Yeah.
Do you also plan on creating a community? Because every streetwear brand, if you see right now, if you visit their website, they do have a community. Like, for example, Supreme.
Yeah.
It's a very old streetwear brand. They have a community of their own. There's Fear of God, Jerry Lorenzo. He's got a community of his own. So do you plan on coming up with something like that, or maybe even a physical store or something?
Yes. So I do have a couple of, community events planned. So again, it's all about, so the agenda with this brand was not just like the clothing and, sustainable clothing, but it was really also about making people aware of a sustainable lifestyle. So that's something I also really wanted to push through the brand. Is not just, I'm not saying, okay, there's minimal mess, everyone has to like wear minimal mess, but also apart from the clothing, like even with the posts on the page, you will see there is, some amount of content that just goes towards telling people how they can achieve a sustainable lifestyle, what kind of things they can do, what they can inculcate in their lifestyle, and etc. So that was one thing that I really wanted to do with the brand. So even the community events that I have in mind and that I've planned are all to do with sustainability, but not so much like to do like with the clothing necessarily, but it's purely about building the community and people who are in the same mindset of like sustainability.
So you're basically trying to sell a lifestyle, not just a piece of clothing.
Yeah.
Nice. So tell us about any incidents where you were, I'm pretty sure when you go for these modeling assignments or these collaborations that you go for, a lot of people may not know that you also own this clothing brand, right? So did it ever happen that you were wearing your piece of clothing and going, and people were like, okay, where did you get that, or something like that?
Oh yeah, that has happened. Not just on shoots, but like normally as well. There are people, and there's actually also people who have we've never met in person, but they're like, oh, I know like Minimal Mess, and they'll be like, oh, you're the person whose brand is Minimal Mess. So I think like that feeling is amazing, because like to me, it's like, okay, people know about the brand, and people who have not met ever, so they come up to me and they say that. So again, that's something that's very rewarding. It feels really nice that people know about it and they like the brand. And some people are like, oh, I follow the page, I follow the brand. So yeah, that's a great feeling.
Okay. So we were having this discussion off camera. I want you to elaborate a little bit on that. What's the kind of support you've rendered from your fellow influencers and models?
Oh, regarding the brand.
Yeah.
It was really amazing to see that a lot of my friends, of course my close friends, as well as people who I've met through Instagram, all my blogger friends and everybody, they were so supportive of the brand. And they themselves, bought the product, they promoted it, they put up, a couple of stories, and some of them just genuinely love the product. And I feel like really happy about that we have such a supportive community that, really supported me, especially when the brand started out and, things like that. And they still do, actually. They still, whenever they wear it, they put it up on their story, they tag the brand. And I think that's really, really sweet of them. So overall, till now, it's been a great, support from the community and friends.
So now that we've spoken about the brand, your modeling journey and all of that, the good stuff, let's speak about some grey stuff, we can say. I'm sure modeling has had many benefits, must have also helped you propel your business. But would you say there are any cons of doing that and any cons of being in the modeling industry?
So I think one thing that lacks in the modeling industry is professionalism. And I'm not sure if that's just here because it's a smaller industry, but I feel like overall, just like how some people respect you, sometimes like they really don't. And sometimes like on set, there are people like it's a different vibe sometimes on set, because you can tell that there are people who just look at you like, oh, you're just a model, and they don't really respect you that much. But luckily, I mean, most of the people are really nice and really respectful. And they give you, like, they genuinely care about you, care about your needs. If you need anything, they're constantly asking you on set. But and sometimes there's also people who like bargain after the shoot is done, when, they've already decided, all the commercials have been decided, everything is done. You've given a good outcome. They're happy with the outcome. But still, when it comes to, making the payment, they bargain with you that time. So I think that's one thing I really dislike about certain people. And that again comes down to respect, because I feel like you're not respecting the person's work enough that when they've put in all those hours, they've done the work, and then you're coming and like telling them that, hey, do it for lesser. So yeah, those things happen a couple of times, but majority of the times it's all good. There's good people, professional people. But yeah, of course, I think in any industry you'll have like these sort of people as well.
Yes. So now my next question is going to be slightly different. All of us retrospect after a certain point of time, no matter what we do in life. So since you are 2 years into your brand's journey, are there any things that you would want to do differently if you were given a chance with regards to setting up your brand and how you run it, etc.? Would you want to do anything differently?
Yeah, definitely. There are a couple of things. For example, one thing is quantities. So initially when I started off, I didn't know, and usually no one knows, right, how much you should be producing, how much of an audience you're going to have, and how are things going to pan out. So initially I didn't have any idea about how much of, quantity to put out, how much of quantity to produce, because the more quantity you're producing, the more amount of money you're putting into it. And again, like, since it was self-funded, I think I should have been more careful about that aspect, because the first product that I launched, it was like I had ordered a really big quantity. And then I realized that, okay, that too as a startup, I should have really thought it through. And
we also many a times don't think about stock storage.
Yeah, that too. I didn't think about the storage part as well. But I should have. And it's okay to start with a lesser quantity and then sort of reorder and do it that way. But when you order like a huge quantity and then it's there, and then you're like, okay, I made a mistake and I should have done it the other way. So I think that's one thing I really learned very early on. And also, like, I think just in general, educating yourself about a lot of things. But again, at the same time, there's not a lot of things that YouTube will tell you or people will tell you. There are things you just have to figure out on your own. So yeah, I think I did my part, but there's a lot of things that my journey taught me as well.
Business is such, you learn every day. You lose some, you learn a lot. Right. So before we wrap this thing up, a common question that I ask everyone is, what is that one takeaway, one feeling, or one learning from this whole experience of shooting this podcast with us?
So, firstly, like my reason of coming down here and being a part of this was that I wanted to give as real an image as possible to people who probably want to start a business or, maybe even want to get into modeling, and just give them a good insight about what it's really like. So I think if through this podcast, if, anyone's gotten even a little bit of help in their journey, or a little bit of, it teaches them something, or, stops them from doing a mistake, I think that would be great. And I think that was the purpose of doing this for me. So I think it was a great conversation, and I think I gave a good amount of insight and, to people who want to be part of any of these industries or even both. So that's what I would say my purpose of coming here was.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast, taking some time out from your busy schedule. And if you like today's podcast, guys, then please do like,
share, and subscribe to projectyou.
And don't forget to click on the bell icon to be notified whenever we come out with a new video.